I beat Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2, albeit one character, for the first time in 2024. So yes, I'm making this video about 6 months or so later, but that is what that is. In the later part of the 90s, I at least attempted Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3, but I was much younger back then. I didn't feel like scaring the crap out of myself. And those games were kind of scary, especially when it came to certain type of enemies and bosses. Not that the zombies, I was cool with that. But in Resident Evil, once you got a little bit further, in the first one, when they had that snake in one of those rooms, that just wasn't for me. I just didn't get past it. It wasn't for me at that time. And it was a lot different as you're playing a video game, say, compared to even the movie Anaconda, which I saw even at that age around that time. But when you're actually interacting and you feel like you're part of the game, hey, you know what? Whoa, I'm kind of creeped out. Like, I can't really get my way through that. And that was just something that was different. But you say in 2024, and a couple years prior, I played The Last of Us for the first time. Scared at times. But you know what? Ellie, I was playing as, I'm playing as Joel, and Ellie's right there, so I didn't feel as scary. And didn't feel that lone experience. Anyways, Resident Evil 1, I got through the Jill Valentine part. I didn't play Chris's part. Resident Evil 2, got through Leon, didn't play Claire's part. But I'll eventually go back to that. I even dove my way into Resident Evil 4. And that's more like a arcade, kill the zombies, and maybe a scary monster will pop up here and there. That's nothing. That doesn't have that same type of feel, that same type of vibe as the original 3 Resident Evils. Now, I didn't buy or acquire Resident Evil 3 again. I think that was the Nemesis type of one. I mean, that was, kind of hit or miss. And I did put all 3 in my PlayStation later part of the 90s, just to experience it a little bit, try it out a little bit. But you know what? I said back then, as graphics improve, and this was in my mind, as graphics improve, you know what? These things will be less scary. And it was to some degree, but the art style for this Resident Evil 2 actually holds up pretty well. And the camera angle and the way the monsters, especially the bosses, move, like, yo, I'm kind of creeped out a little bit. Do I gotta squint my eyes a little bit and try to navigate through it? And maybe it's a historical thing going back to, hey, it's scary, and maybe The Last of Us is more scary, but this stuff, it's like, it's just like, kind of unsettling, And then, I play it, when I can. If I got a long stretch, I can play it. Hey, you know what? I'm still thinking about it a little bit. It might be in my dreams a little bit, but nonetheless, I did get through a character in each of those, and I'll probably finish it up at some point in time. And I popped in Resident Evil 4, and I played up to the Regenerators, and I'm sure that's near the end. And I'll finish it up at some point in time. And I still have a PS3, Resident Evil 5, and I look forward to playing that because it's action, adventure, type of House of the Dead type of stuff, where it's not as scary, but it's a little bit scary, but not as scary. Kind of vibe is going on with the Resident Evil games as you get beyond the first 3. And since I wanted to complete it, I played Resident Evil on the training mode. Resident Evil 2, I think they either had a rookie or a training mode that I played through it. It was cool. Now, with Resident Evil, once that Snake part happened, I just kind of kept chugging along, so I didn't get to play alongside Barry. And that probably been a little bit more comforting in that scenario, etc. I didn't see him to end. And, I didn't obviously get a certain type of ending. But I just kept going along and along and along. So yeah, I was just happy to play these again. Still holds up in my opinion. But I am a person that played the PlayStation 1 through the latter parts of the 90s. So you have that. But I think the fact that they used pre-rendered backgrounds was actually a good move. Especially as things are progressing with the graphics. But yes, I'm just putting this video out to say, hey, guess what? I did what I said I was going to do a little over how many ever, a little over a couple decades later, right? And I did it. I'm happy to complete those games. Good games. And you can say the acting isn't great in those games, but it didn't matter. This is just something a little bit different where you can convey the horror, the fear, and you're actually interactive and mixed up in it. I enjoy these games, and I actually saw the movies, some parts of the earlier 2000s, mid 2000s. Not an issue, like I said, but just when you start playing the games like this, he's like, it's a little bit of fear. It kind of creeps you out a little bit because you like interacting with that. It's a little bit different. So yes, these Resident Evil games, I enjoy these. Not sure if I'm gonna play the third one, but I did play 4 and I will play 5. So yes, I did come back to these games, and maybe I'm making this video for myself, but I did come to back to these games over a couple decades later and completed what I wanted to complete it. And I eventually will go back, play the second disc or the second character, what have you, and make that happen. Obviously, Resident Evil has changed to some degree over time, but these were part of the original classics, where you got to start from. I enjoyed seeing Resident Evil, going to the mansion, going through, what was it, the sewer or the underground part, and getting to the labs and things of that nature. Resident Evil 2, the police station, definitely sewers, and getting to a lab kind of area and things of that nature. You know, boss is always scary, from the spiders to the snakes. You know, that's just not something I'm into when they move in that type of reptilian type of way. I don't even know the word for it, but, you know, that is what that is. So, yeah, I'm just happy that, like, you know what? I said I was going to get back to these games as a child to actually complete it. You fast forward a couple decades later, and I did. And I knew I enjoyed these kind of little story things because I did see the movie and I saw Anaconda maybe around that same time, late part of the 90s. I'm like, hey, let me just get over this a little bit. And as graphics improve, I'll be used to it. And I did get more used to it, but it still kind of holds up. Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2, like I said, it holds up. Just the art style, the camera angles, and the way the bosses move. Even kind of maybe because of low frame rate, but just the way it moves and some of the other little effects. It did scare me, I ain't gonna lie. But yeah, played these classic PlayStation games. That's all I gotta say about that. Good stuff right here. Resident Evil 4, different. More like a house that did shoot up the zombies a lot of times, and a couple of weird things. But it's more about, hey, Resident Evil 4 that you actually have to be more skilled in terms of, it's not resource management skills, but in terms of shooting skills, avoiding enemies, and it's kind of blasting around, kind of arcadey style. I heard Resident Evil 5 are the same. I hope to get that into this game at some point and just go from there, because those Resident Evil 4 and 5 isn't, well, I played 4, and I assume 5 probably isn't going to be kind of scary, terror, horrifying, nightmare, possibly inducing kind of things. Good stuff right there. Just saying that I beat it. Beat it right. Jill Valentine, Leon over here, by planning to put in the second disc or play with the other character. So yeah, I'm just putting it out there. Got through the game. One character. Iceberg Jim out. Deuces.